Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day 542, 542, September the 7th. I don't know what day it is, but I think it's September 7th, 2018. Saturday, the Saturday morning edition of TowerGate. Thank you so much for tuning in. Papadopolous has been sentenced to 14 days in prison and a $9,500 fine. Well, let's see. What can we make of this? Well, 14 days, huh? Ooh, prison. They're not going to... It would take him 2 weeks to get processed into a prison. He's going to the county jail. We'll have TV, music, video, play pool, lift weights, play ping pong, shuffleboard. He'll have a great time. He'll make some new friends. He'll finally get some peace of mind. You don't have to worry about being harassed by the FBI there. Oh, but they got him for that $9,500 fine. If you remember, that he was given $10,000 by some sort of a person involved in the plot to set him up. To set him up. But he left the money back in Greece. He didn't bring it with him to the airport when he got to New York. So when they arrested him, he didn't have the 10 grand. But the FBI wants their 10 grand back. I mean, that's 10 grand that they gave to a spy to give to Papadopolous to set him up, and they expected to get their money back. They were really pissed when they found out that they arrested Papadopolous and found out that he didn't know where the 10 grand was. They weren't going to get the 10 grand back. It was in a bank in Greece, and now they can't go get it because it will prove that they're the ones who put it in the hands of the spy who set him up in the first place. So it looks like that they're going to get their $9,500 back another way, through a fine. And I guess they're going to give him $500, I guess, to keep him honest, I guess, to keep him from talking about what else he knows. A little tip or something. What a fiasco, man. What a fiasco. You know, Papadopolous would have got to kept the whole 10 grand and probably a lot more had he not choked up and not given Stefan Halper the evidence that they needed. It was when Papadopolous spit the bit and didn't tell Stefan Halper what he was supposed to tell him is when the whole plan got botched and they had to move on to something else. So I guess this is a way to get back at Papadopolous. But we'll see. This is not the end of this story. Oh, and it's not the end of the mystery man Papadopolous. There's a lot more to know about him. Remember, he's the one guy who had contact with every guy that's mentioned in the dossier. Source A, B, C, D, E, and F. A, B, C, D, E, and F. There is no C. So there you go. Papadopolous, 14 days and a $9,500 fine. There's a lot more to know about that, and I'm sure we'll get there. Well, thanks to the demo commies in the Senate for their sophomoric, imbecilic, childish, contemptible, and un-American behavior in the Kavanaugh hearings. Thanks to these Democrats. Demowits. Because many Dems now in tight races in red states, their jobs have now become much tougher, as they will now have to try and distance themselves from the party they belong to and the agenda they advocate. Well done, Demowits. Well done. Another reason why we're probably going to be very successful in the midterms. You don't want to be one of these Democrats in one of these tight races in a red state after the entire country having watched this spectacle in these Supreme Court nominations. If you've seen any of the polling on what people think about it, they were not impressed, they were not entertained, they were not enthused about what they saw. And this is all going to be used against Democrats in tight races in red states. So thank you very much, Demowits in the Senate. Thank you very much. Once again, round of applause for the Senate Demowits. Excellent. Excellent. Well done. You know, the New York Times has really stepped on it by publishing that garbage in their birdcage liner. The source, the unnamed source or unknown source or whatever, because I think that they believe that they were just going to throw this hit piece out there, that they would get a couple of days of hits on it, and then they would move on to the next hit piece. I don't think they expected it to to resonate quite the way it did and to generate the interest that it did. Now, keep in mind, they have a competitor called the Washington Post, who, despite the fact that they're on both sides and opposing Trump, they're still very vicious competitors to one another. And the Washington Post is not going to miss an opportunity to stick it to the Times if they can and make a little political hay, especially since these people are all going to be turning against one another anyway, as we've already seen. So you can bet that some of those reporters over at the Washington Post and a lot of other people, a lot of journalists, Trump himself, people on the inside, people he has, maybe Sessions, I don't know, they're going to be trying to find out exactly what's going on with this so-called source who wrote that op-ed in the New York Times. They're going to try to find out this person. And I still am on record as saying that I think they're going to find that it was not a high-level Trump appointee, a political position in his administration. It might be a bureaucratic staffer in one of those departments, the State Department or the Defense Department or something like that. But it's not going to be a Mattis or anyone like that. That's ridiculous. And it's very likely it could turn out to be some Democratic hack, like a Carl Bernstein or Bob Woodward, or maybe a friend of the Clintons. It could turn out to be Glenn Simpson. He's pretty good at that stuff. Christopher Steele, maybe he's back in the game. Who knows? But I'm pretty sure that it may take a few weeks, maybe a few months. But I think the name of this person is going to come out. And there's supposedly an intermediary. The name of that person will likely keep out. Because you can't keep these kind of secrets in the swamp. Oh, you can't keep this type of secret in the swamp. There's too many people who like sex and money way too much for this here to stay silent in the swamp. Someone will talk if you offer them what they really want. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of offering in the swamp right now, I can assure you. Lots of people making lots of offers, lots of hungry reporters who want to know and are willing to pay to get that information. I think we're going to get the name, certainly of the intermediary, likely the source of the person who's alleged to have written that garbage that the New York Times published. And I think when we learn who that is, it's going to come back and backfire, really embarrass, do a lot of damage to the New York Times. And I would not be the least surprised if it comes from the Washington Post, who would love to stick it to them. Let's wait and see how that turns out. Well, it looks like Hussein Obama has now started talking, and it appears he's going to be out campaigning. Good. Very well. Yes, he was at the in a safe place, which is the only place you'll ever see Obama or Hillary. They will only go to safe places, by the way. You're not going to see Obama and Hillary go into any red states or any red counties or anywhere other than very, very friendly territory. So this was at the University of Chicago in Illinois. It doesn't matter. See, it really doesn't matter. The Rotten Reverend and Obama can go to all the friendly districts that they want. It doesn't really help them get more votes. You don't get more votes by preaching to the choir. You get more votes by going into hostile enemy territory and turning a few of those people. They say, wow, he's got the courage to come here, and you try to get some of them people who don't vote. And you try to turn them. And if you're good, you can do something like that, like Reagan and Trump. Obama ain't got the stuff. And definitely the Rotten Reverend Clinton does it. And the Rotten Reverend Clinton, I mean, let's face it, during the campaign, running for president, she couldn't fill up a high school gymnasium without them busing people in and paying them and buying them lunch at McDonald's. If people weren't bussed in or paid to come to a Rotten Reverend Clinton event, she could give her speeches in a phone booth. And this also gives people an opportunity to compare and contrast. Because we've had Trump now for 2 years, and the economy's cranking. We're not involved in any counterinsurgency wars. He's fighting the trade battles. He's representing us, and he's doing all the things that he promised us he would do. People are freaking out. They've never seen this happen before. But when you see Obama and the Rotten Reverend Clinton pop up on the scene, it only reminds people of how bad things sucked under these two in foreign policy, domestic policy, economic policy, you name it. It sucked under the Rotten Reverend and Obama. So I'm glad that they're out there. Well done. I hope they stay out there all summer long and all throughout the fall and up until Election Day. They will cost the Democratic Party votes and seats. And this has been proven before in the past. They both have a record of doing more damage than good. So I hope they do go out and do all the campaigning they can. Again, they'll only go to safe places. You'll never see either Obama or the Right Reverend Clinton go outside of a very, very blue district, which means they're just preaching to the choir. But at the same time, people will see their faces and hear their names and remember that they're still out there, and they'll go, oh, God, yeah, I remember that. Oh, shit. We don't want to go back to that, man. Whew. So we have Obama trying to take credit for the Trump economy. Bullshit. He said that in a speech that the days of 3% or better growth, economic growth, was not possible. And that the 2% growth model was the new normal. He said that manufacturing jobs are gone and they're not coming back. Then he told us he had shovel-ready jobs when he was running for re-election. Oh, but then after he won re-election, he told us, well, there's really no such thing as actual shovel-ready jobs. Oh, yeah? Looks to me like Trump's got better than shovel-ready jobs. Trump creates jobs, they don't have time to get the shovel before he's created the job. Trump's GDP, when Trump took over, the GDP was 1.8%. Pretty much Obama's average over his 8 years, around 1.6 to 1.8%. The current GDP growth is now 4.2% and going up. Obama's a liar. And he sucks. Obama was, of course, in Chicago, where he failed to mention the murder rate, which skyrocketed during his 8 years as president and continues to this day, with no help from Rahm Deadfish Emanuel, who's now being run out of town as well. That's right. Obama also says that he covered every American with health insurance. Bullshit. He did not. Obamacare covered 21 million people, but it left 28 million people uninsured. And a lot of people lost their health care. A lot of people saw massive increases in their premiums. Many people lost certain features of the plan that they had liked, that they could no longer get. Many people lost their doctors. Nobody really liked Obamacare. It was a big freaking disaster. And in fact, that's the very thing that Republicans ran on in three consecutive election cycles to win over 800 seats in federal elections. They did it running on Obamacare. And he's out there to this crowd in the University of Chicago, which is total, I mean, these are total trained SEALs. I'm sure they through the entire speech, probably clapping everything he said, lying his ass off. They believe it all because they're dumber than dirt. That's why they voted for him in the first place, and that's why they're there. Who else would go watch this guy give a speech? He lies from the beginning to the end. It's going to get much worse for him, though, and we all know it, and we know why. And so does he. He said that the national debt, when he was running for president the first time, he was going after George W. Bush about the fact that he had doubled the national debt. And Obama said that that was unpatriotic, despite the fact that Barack Obama himself doubled the national debt just like Bush did. It doubled under him too. Then he says that he reduced the deficit by half. This is also bullshit. When Bush left, he had a $400 billion deficit. When Obama left, he had a $600 billion deficit. And now the deficit has leveled off under Trump, but it will go down. It'll go down because you will have more revenues coming into the Treasury, and because Trump is going to reduce the federal workforce, and he's not going to get into any multi-trillion-dollar counterinsurgency wars. So when Trump leaves office, we may not even have a deficit. We may have balanced budgets. And the national debt may go down. It's kind of hard for that to happen. There would have to be some major changes in our system of banking and things like that. You'd have to abolish the Federal Reserve. You'd have to get rid of fractional reserve banking because we have a debt-based system. It's designed on building more debt. So I don't know how you fix that one. without abolishing the Fed, which I am a supporter of. Obama says he created created hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs. Bullshit. He did not. Obama lost 303 manufacturing jobs when he took over. From the time he took over to the time he left, there was 303,000 less manufacturing jobs in the country. What? He's saying he created all the manufacturing jobs by lobbing tons of taxes and regulations on the people who create the jobs? The math doesn't add up for Hussein Obama. He would never refer to President Trump as President Trump. Never has. He only referred to him as Mr. Trump. Never President Trump. Let's keep in mind that during the tenure of Barack Hussein Obama, that the Democrats lost 76 House seats and 15 Senate seats while he was president. That's why I'm very happy that he's out there. Maybe he can cost him 76 more House seats and 15 more Senate seats. That would be quite good, don't you think? And let's not forget what we just learned just a couple of days ago. We learned that they didn't actually go to the FISA court in the normal process. There were no hearings and no questions. They used a obscure law to get around it, which allowed the Attorney General to implement the FISA surveillance. But we learned from looking closer at that law that that can only be done with the signature of the president, which would have been Barack Hussein Obama, which means he owns. When you want to get to the bottom of who actually was the final word, who had to give the final word for all those illegal FISA warrants, it was Barack Hussein Obama. He's the one, and the only one, the executive, who could have signed off on this obscure law, allowing the Attorney General to go around the normal FISA system. He is going to be exposed as being the quarterback of the criminal conspiracy, the coup d'etat. He is going to go down in history as the worst president ever. He should probably, in fact, definitely should go to prison. He should be castrated, stretched, and quartered, and hanged. But we likely won't do that because we generally don't do that to presidents. He'll be pardoned, most likely. He will need to be pardoned, by the way, because he will have committed massive crimes. So he will probably be begging on his hands and knees to Trump to pardon him. That's what's in his future. Lying son of a bitch. My goodness. Okay, I want to direct just a moment of conversation to my friends out there in California. California. There's some good folks out in California. There's some good conservatives out there. I have friends that live out there. I have friends that had to leave from there, actually, because they couldn't live there anymore. This is very important. John Cox is not the greatest conservative going on. Certainly no right-winger. I don't even know if he's really a big pro-Trump guy. I don't think he is. But he offers you an opportunity, California. Now, I know you Republicans out there in a lot of places in California, you know, you can't do it on your own. There's not enough of you. So I want to direct my comments to if there are any Democrats out there who have any sanity in their head whatsoever, any common sense in their head whatsoever in California. You are looking at a very, very important decision this fall. Gavin Newsom is promised to allow people to come to California illegally. Just pour in across the border to come to California illegally. He's told them he will give them free health care, free housing, food stamps, ADC, free legal services, free everything. He's offering free everything to any illegals who want to come to California from anywhere in the world. Anywhere. He didn't rule out any place, including places where there are terrorist hotbeds, places where commies run rampant. He wants to open up California and turn it into a third world shithole. And it's not far from that now. My friends out there in California, Democrat or Republican, but especially you hopefully sane Democrats. You better pay very close attention. This election is very important. If you get this wrong and you get Gavin Newsom in 4 years, do you know what's going to happen if he wins that election and comes out and proclaims that now people from all over the world can illegally flow into California and they'll get free health care, they'll get free housing, free food, free ADC, free this, free that, free legal advice, free everything. Do you realize how many illegals are going to flow into California? Do you know what kind of people are going to flow into California? Do you know who they are? No, you don't. But you can bet at least 10%, if not a lot more, could be part of the criminal element. You could see a massive, massive spike in violent crime. Gangs literally taking over cities in California. You think you got poop on the streets now? Just watch and see what happens if Gavin Newsom gets elected. It's a very serious decision that you folks have to make out there in California. You Democrats. And you're the ones that are going to decide it. There aren't enough Republicans to save you. You, Democrats. I know there's a lot of them who are whacked out of their minds. Haven't got a single lick of common sense in their head. But for those of you Democrats that do, you better get out and vote. And you better vote for John Cox. If you screw this one up, you're going to lose California forever. It's hard to imagine exactly how bad this could be if Gavin Newsom is elected governor of California. I mean, he's way worse than Jerry Brown. And how's that worked out? Sane Democrats are the only thing that can save California right now. You better think long and hard when you go into that voting booth, my friends. Cast that ballot. You vote for Gavin Newsom, and you might as well bend over and kiss your asses goodbye. And don't come here to the Southern District of Ohio, Butler County, and think you're going to launch your commie activities and pleasures here. It's not going to happen. We won't have you. You won't last long here either. We don't like your type. Think long and hard about it, Democrats in California. Don't screw it up. ABC News has released a 2-year-old transcript with Sergei Milian, who is known as Source D and E in the dossier. He was interviewed by Brian Ross, who was, of course, fired after he did that phony, fake Michael Flynn story. In this interview, Milian tells Brian Ross that Trump had tricks up his sleeve. The interview was in July of 2016, the 29th to be exact, just 2 days before the opening of Crossfire Hurricane investigation by Peter Strokinus and all of his friends. Just days before that interview is when Milian first made contact with Papadopolous. Now keep in mind, Glenn Simpson has described Milian as a big talker. Milian was first linked to the dossier by the Wall Street Journal on January the 24th of 2017. Milian was described in the dossier as being a close associate of Trump, despite the fact that they had only met one time back in 2007. In the ABC interview, Milian suggested that Putin probably had Clinton emails, and if he wanted to help Trump, he would have released them. But he did not. So, according to Milian, he must have supported Hillary. Milian also said that he was in Moscow at the same time as Trump for the Miss Universe pageant. We now know that he was lying. He wasn't in Moscow. He was in New York. Milian himself has contradicted this claim, his very own claim. Bruce Orr's notes show that he discussed Milian with Glenn Simpson. Simpson told Orr that a person, quote, or a person that he was referring to, Simpson didn't say Milian's name, but he was describing Milian. So we have Simpson describing Milian when he's talking to Orr, and he said that this individual, and he's talking about Milian, was a close friend of Trump and had put together several real estate deals with Trump and was a longtime associate of Trump. Simpson knew at the time he said it, he was lying. He knew it He knew he was lying. Glenn Simpson knew that Milian was no longtime friend of, close associate of Trump. He knew at that time that Milian had only met Trump on one occasion, back in 2007. Just another one of the many lies of Glenn Simpson, who I think is probably going to be going to jail as well. Certainly he will be destroyed, I would think. Steele would have also known that this is a lie. Yet he played along with it as well. So you see what's going on here. They're feeding Bruce Ohr lies. Steele and Simpson are feeding Bruce Ohr lies. Then he goes to the FBI and tells them. And the FBI knows that Ohr is telling them lies. Now, Ohr is telling the truth. He's telling what he was told. But the FBI knows that what he was told were lies because Steele and Simpson are working for them. They're using Bruce Ohr. Milian contacted Papadopolous on July the 22nd of 2016 on LinkedIn. And they communicated for several months in the summer of 2016. Papadopolous' wife says that Milian offered Papadopolous a job working for a Russian energy company named Bashneft. But the catch was that Papadopolous had to work from within the Trump campaign. Papadopolous rejected the offer. Again, just proving that Milian was working for probably Halper or Downer or maybe Mr. Potato Head himself, maybe someone in the FBI. Milian was planted in there as a spy to try to lure Papadopolous into something that would, again, they were trying to get Papadopolous every which way from Sunday. Apparently they had targeted him as an easy mark, someone they could easily manipulate and target. And, you know, for the most part, they turned out to be correct. But we know that he decided not to talk when he was supposed to tell Halper about the Russians having Hillary emails, and we know that he rejected this offer. We know that he was smart enough not to bring that money from Greece back with him to the States. So he wasn't that totally stupid. He obviously smelled a rat. He obviously knew that something was going on that shouldn't be going on. His instincts were probably kicking in and saying, hey, George, there's some funny things going on. You better really watch your step. These people that you're being associated with, there's a problem going on here. And so he probably knew something was wrong. He probably just didn't know what. We have Diane, turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein, saying that 1.2 million women died from illegal abortions before Roe versus Wade. Oh my God. That's ridiculous. Nowhere near that kind of a number. Maybe a few thousand people would go to try to get abortions, and they would die as a result of, you know, trying to do their own abortion, or someone in the back alley trying to do abortion, or whatever. Yeah, there were probably thousands of deaths, maybe even 10 or 20,000. But this idea that there was 1.2 million women who died from illegal abortions before Roe versus Wade, that's just insanity. But let's talk about another angle on that. Turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein. You talk about 1.2 million. How about the millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of babies who were murdered in the womb, including probably about half of them women, or would have been women, female babies murdered in the womb. Millions and 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 millions. There's millions a year are murdered that way. Diane, turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein. 1.2 million killed she's concerned about, but she's not the least bit concerned about the tens and hundreds of millions that have been murdered in the womb, including half of which were probably women. Probably a lot of Democrats. No wonder they can't win elections. They're performing genocide on half their voter base. Well done. My oh my, that woman is dumber than dirt. And she's in trouble in that election, by the way, in California. Senator Diane, turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein is trying to hold on to her Senate seat. And she's being challenged by a much younger, much more well-spoken candidate who's given her a run for her money. She's got a hell of a lot more money than he's got, but money doesn't always win you an election, as we saw in 2016. The Right Reverend Clinton had $1.2 billion, double what Trump spent. Finally, John Solomon is reporting that Bruce Orr met with FBI officials in July of 2016. That's why they want those 302s released. I get it now. This is regarding the Russia probe. Operation Crossfire Hurricane, whatever you want to call it. And he was persuaded to do so by Christopher Steele. Uh-oh. And there were multiple contacts in the month of July 2016 between Steele and Orr. It was previously believed that these contacts didn't begin until November of 2016. But now we know it was July 2016. We also now know that Bruce Orr met with Peters Benstrokinus on July the 30th, 2016, one day before the opening of Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Oh my my. Oh my my. I've said many times in these videos that ultimately this is going to come down to, as far as the dossier and that whole 9 yards and all this kind of stuff that we're talking about here, it's ultimately going to come down to Christopher Steele's credibility, because that's how the entire thing was based on in the first place. The whole thing was meant to be sold using his credibility as a former MI6 agent and his sources. But now we know his sources are bullshit. They're not connected to Russians at all. They're Americans of Russian descent who hang out with Western intelligence agencies. Steele is going to find himself facing a grand jury and being asked a lot of questions. Now, we already know from his deposition and from the court filings that he's basically said, hey, I couldn't tell you the dossier is true. It was raw intelligence. I didn't talk to any of the sources. I talked to intermediaries who got stuff from collectors, who got it from the original sources. Hey, I just passed it on and said, hey, you may want to investigate this. I didn't tell them to use it as part of an investigation to get FISA warrants. I just said they may want to look into it. In other words, Christopher Steele is disassociating himself from the dossier and the facts of the dossier as best he can to cover his own butt, because he's being sued by 3 Russian bankers and Mr. Gubarev. Ultimately, he is going to be facing a grand jury, and he's going to be asked a lot of things. And we're going to find out that it was the dossier that they used to get the FISA warrants, which they got illegally based on the dossier, which is put together as a fraud, which they knew was a fraud. And the guy that they're going to count on to save their bacon is Christopher Steele. And he ain't going to do it. He's going to save his bacon. They're the ones that's going to fry. And Christopher Steele's going to ride off into the sunset and write a book and make millions. And Peter's Benstrokinus and McCabe and Comey and all these other people, their ass is going to jail. Obama's legacy will be destroyed. He'll probably have to beg Trump for a pardon. The Right Reverend Clinton's definitely going to jail. Many, many people are going to jail. It may be 3 months from now, it may be 6 months from now, it may be 3 years from now. This thing's going to shake itself out. I assure you of that. A lot of people are going to jail. Plain and simple. As we can see it all unraveling. And they know it. And I'm telling you, that's why they're so hysterical. They know what's coming. And it's not pretty. It's probably like cruising down the road in your car. You see a fuel tanker cross the intersection trying to beat a yellow light. You slam the brakes. You know that you can't stop. You know you're going to hit the fuel tanker broadsided. You're going to T-bone him. And you can't do a damn thing about it. And there's going to be a big ass explosion. And you're not going to live to tell about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have a good night. I'll see you on Sunday. Bye.